Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you appreciate this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We're really thankful. We have Karly Almon on the show with us. She's an online coach. She's also a strength and conditioning coach for the Yakima SunKings, all the way up in the great state that is Washington. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Karly, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what got you into that healthy and fit lifestyle? What inspired you?
Well, I was a chunkier kid. I was always really, really tall. And I think in about sixth grade, I kind of decided I just didn't feel good. I didn't like how I thought I was perceived. And so took it on myself. I started homeschooling, and which is kind of odd in itself, but started homeschooling and took the time to actually like kind of educate myself what I could do to lose weight. I think I was at my heaviest 180 pounds, and I was like 5'7" in like fifth grade. So just taking it that step and educating myself and figuring out how to make myself feel better. And exercise was the first way to do that. So I would wake up in the mornings, and my mom had a stationary bike, and I'd go out and I'd ride the bike for 30 minutes. And that's kind of how it started. And it just snowballed from there. So
I always sort of like to say that if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways how people got fit, whether it comes to their nutrition, whether it comes to how many reps they did, what exercises they did. Was that hard for you finding out at first sort of what specifically worked best for your body? Because like I said, if you talk to someone about how they got fit, it's going to normally be very different from how it's going to work for your body.
Yeah. For me, I think at that point in time, anything worked because I didn't do anything. So anything that I was going to do was going to work. And I started cleaning up my diet. I came from a vegetarian upbringing. And so we kind of had that little healthy background, but vegetarianism isn't that healthy because they pack everything with mayonnaise and sugar and, you know, all these fats, and they're processed foods trying to mimic real meat. And so I had a little bit of a healthy background, but I had to take it a step further. So anything really that I did that was consistent was going to work for me. And over time, I've definitely experimented with a lot of different dieting techniques and a lot of different exercise techniques. And only now am I kind of figuring out really what works really well for my body. And I'm 35. So it's taken a long time. It's not something that you just jump into and go, that's what's going to work for me. So.
See, everyone, the benefits of a healthy lifestyle. She doesn't look a day over 25.
Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%. So, did you find that your body adjusted really, really quickly starting out, or was it more sort of a work in progress when it came to seeing results?
Back then, it was really quick. Just because I hadn't done those things before, it was ready and it was time and it was on board. So it happened quick. It gets a little more difficult trying to keep that. And I've gone through my highs and lows and gain weight, lose weight, you know, all the different just ups and downs of keeping the lifestyle, keeping a physique. So
yeah. And at what point did the nutrition really come to play? Well, first of all, what was your nutrition like before you got started into that lifestyle change, and how did it sort of evolve over time?
Well, like I said, before I started getting into health, fitness, and all the good stuff, I was raised vegetarian, but it was not as healthy as I think most people perceive vegetarianism. There's just tons of sugar and everything and lots of fat which is fine to an extent, but when you're trying to lose weight or whatever, you can't just pack everything with sugar and fat. So trying to figure out how to use that background, but make it adaptable for me and my goals. That was what was difficult, I guess. It's taken a long time. Like I said, I went through a lot of trial and error with different dieting. I started out with like low carb, and like that wasn't working for me. So I went high carb, that wasn't great. So it has taken a really long time to figure out what exactly works for me in my body. And I'm still trying to figure it out. It's still kind of a work in progress. I don't think it ever actually changes, because as you adapt in your strength training and your muscle gain and fat loss, like everything changes. So you have to adapt everything with everything else that's adapting.
One of the huge myths that we love to bust on this show, I mean, it has gotten better, I'd say, like the last 5 years with Instagram and everything, but women still have this belief where if they touch one weight, they're going to Hulk out and become Dwayne The Rock Johnson overnight. Have you ever had that fear yourself? And even if you haven't, when people come up to you and say that, what is your main response to that?
I never had that fear because I wanted to get bigger. I wanted to make muscle. When people talk to me about that, honestly, I tell them, like, I've been trying to get big for years, and I've gained not that much muscle mass, really. So it's not a fear, and it shouldn't be a fear. You should be lifting heavy, even if you do feel like you bulk up really fast. You should still be lifting heavy to change the shape of your body. You know, all the benefits, regardless of how much bulk you get or don't get. I mean, you're still working on your skeletal system and your hormonal, like everything benefits. So why not?
Absolutely. I always love to tell the story. When I was in college, one of my good friends, she wanted to sort of adapt that more healthy and fit lifestyle. And that's when I really started working out. And she'd always say, like, oh, I want to go with you to the gym, but I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big. And then this went on for like a month. And then I finally just snapped one night and I said, look, the amount of weight that your purse carries when we go out to like clubs or we go out to eat weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in there. Right. And you're not getting big from lugging that thing around all day. And then she's like, oh, yeah. So then that kind of really convinced her. And it's just one of those things where I think once you get in there and touch that first weight, and then all the myths kind of just go away when you just realize, you know, like, hey, this is actually one of the most beneficial things that I can do. So it's just really just about sort of breaking that down. And another big thing is that there's always seemed to be this fear, and even I had that because I had a different experience, but especially for women, they feel that there's going to be like these big 400-pound guys in the gym that are just going to be like super intimidating and really just give them a hard time. I mean, I was a freshman in high school, and my brother was the star quarterback of the varsity team, so I kind of had that. That was a whole different thing. But with that, I just always like to say 99.9% of the people in the gym don't even care that you exist because they're too busy being focused on their own workouts. It's just another huge thing that I really like to debunk. But did your training stay the same when you started to as you are now, or did you incorporate new sort of methods, new sort of techniques, or has it been more of just an evolving shift, like you kind of said, even with the nutrition?
Well, even like when I started, it was more focused on cardio. I didn't know any different then, so it was a lot of cardio, a lot of cutting calories. And as things have evolved over time, I've lifted heavier and heavier and heavier. And I now follow a somewhat daily undulating periodization type program. And it works really well for me. As I get older, I'm learning more about recovery. We all know recovery is really great, but how you mix it in with your personal goals is kind of tough. So really what's happened is I've gone from more is better, you know, exercise more, eat less, more, to eat more, do more, rest more. And as my body's adapted, my training has adapted to get to those goals that I still have. So it's changed over time. But the only thing really that I do differently is lifting heavy and resting more.
So what does an average week look like for you when it comes to your rest schedule and your workout schedule?
Right now, I'm following more of a 3 days on, 1 day off type schedule. I lift compound movements, so squat, deadlift, overhead barbell press, bench press, pull-ups. I do those 3 to 4 times a week and as heavy as possible. And then take 1 day of rest where it's active recovery, housework, play with my kids, and nutrition stays the same pretty much every day.
That's a whole different topic, being a mom in and of itself. I always like to say, I mean, that's a full-time job in and of itself. How are you able to maintain that and still maintain a healthy and fit lifestyle? Because just one of those two is enough as it is, but having both, is it just really just a time commitment that you really have to be focused on? What are some techniques that you use?
I try to get my kids involved, actually. I think it's really important for them to see me being active, whether it's in the gym or outside or doing whatever. So I try, to take them with me. The gym is actually something they enjoy going to, whether it's my personal gym or we go somewhere else where they have kids' rooms. So eating is a big deal. I really try with my kids as far as nutrition goes, not to freak them out about food. I want them to eat food, but I don't want them to see food as bad or good. They don't have restrictions, I guess, but we always have healthy options around. So they learn the value of food. But really just getting them involved and letting them see you work out, letting them know why you go to the gym or you do whatever workout you want to do. I think it's really important.
I couldn't agree more. I always talk about how just having that role model in the family too of having that healthy and fit lifestyle. I mean, we always see like it's scientifically proven if your parents are a little bit more obese, you are more prone to take up that obesity because you kind of follow what your parents do. So it's kind of about setting that positive example.
Mhm.
But how important is that for you too? That I mean, we have so many moms on here and dads on here that when it comes to that nutrition, to sort of let them be kids also when it comes to like letting them have their pizzas, letting them
Right.
have their hamburgers. I mean, we have people that have done like competitions and are in prep mode, and it's like, first of all, that's, you know, a different beast, just being able to maintain the fact that your kids are going to have all that food and not wanting to just, you know, kill yourself
Right.
looking at them eating all that food. How important is it for you to them too to also let them be kids too, but also sort of see benefits of a healthy and fit lifestyle can do for them down the road?
Well, I think it's really important for them to experience all foods, whether it's good or bad food. I don't restrict them. I think that if they want pizza, okay, we have pizza, but we also have something really super healthy on the side. Um, I do believe that as humans, if we take something away, that's when we're going to want it. So don't take anything away. I think later on down the road, their tastes change. Our tastes changed. I hated Brussels sprouts when I was a kid, and now I love them. So not freaking out about, well, if you have to have this now or else you're never going to learn to like it and whatnot. So just keeping your, like, things change, and you have to just know you're not stuck. They're not stuck. This is not going to scar them for, later on down the road, and just adapting to them and letting them kind of choose their little road.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to help out others?
I think well, when I was in college studying exercise science, um, that's personal training was always what I just figured I would do. I didn't really see myself doing anything else. And as time has gone on, it's kind of just grown. I love helping now moms because now I'm a mom and I get it. I didn't ever understand the limitations when you're a mom or how your body changes. So it's nice as my life has changed. It opens up doors to help other people in those same situations. It's been a blast working with a basketball team, helping those guys.
So I was gonna say, like I said in the intro, you are a strength and conditioning coach for a basketball team. How did you get that job?
Um, Random actually. Heard from someone in town that the team was back. They actually took, I think it was like a 10-year hiatus, and they came back, and this person told me send in my resume, and I was kind of looking for something extra to do. Sent it in. I think the coach's wife saw my resume and said call her. He called me on a Wednesday evening, and 10 minutes later I was hired. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So, I mean, I always like to sort of talk, you know, about especially tall people because I'm 6'3" myself. So when it comes to working out, it is a lot different than I'd say from some of the guests that I have on here that are like 5'2", 5'3". I mean,
yeah.
muscles, it's going to take a little bit more work to, you know, build up your muscles when you're a lot taller. What are some specific ways, and you're working with guys that are on the extreme, especially basketball players when it comes to height. What are some differences in ways that you sort of like to compensate for the fact that those guys, when it comes to putting on muscle mass or even conditioning, it's going to take a lot more work than someone let's say that's 5 feet tall? What are some techniques that you use?
Well, so far we've really only worked in season, so we're not really focused on building muscle mass. We're really more sport specific and keeping them where they are, trying not to lose weight, which is a big deal. So we do a lot of sport specific moves. Maybe we'll add in some medicine balls or whatever. But the real challenge has been taking a 7'10" guy and teaching him how to deadlift, which may or may not be appropriate for him. So kind of just figuring out what works for them with their body. And every body is different. Just because you're 7'10" doesn't mean you can't deadlift, but it doesn't mean you're going to deadlift the same. So finding a lot of modifications, and it's challenging, and it's a lot of fun actually. And once they get it, that's just so fun to watch and see. So
Yeah, I always like to say, though, tall people can be used as stuff in the weight room as well. I mean, I remember in college there was a girl who was about 5'2", and she was really, really built, and everyone was using the pull-up bars or whatever like that. So I said, oh, here, I got you down. So I just put my arm out and stuck it on the wall, and that's her little pull-up bar. So you can be used as accessories. Tall people have little restrictions that they can do. Yeah, absolutely. So use tall people if all else fails. But it's one of those things where it does take a lot of adjustment. And specifically with basketball players, what is their training? How does their training differ from the training that you do? I mean, I said that they do like a lot of athletic moves, and it's not. I mean, there can be some weight training involved, but what do you think differs that workout from your workouts?
Well, my workouts are really focused on getting stronger. I don't care as much if I can run up and down a court as fast as possible or decelerate. I don't care about that. Their workouts are focused on deceleration, vertical jumps, and having power, and so sport specific moves. But they still have a lot of the compound moves. I think, your deadlift and your squats are all super important no matter what sport you're in. So trying to keep strength, but work in some of the mobility, injury prevention is huge. And actually we worked a lot with injury prevention. We had very few injuries last season, which was awesome. They ended up winning the championship with, I think the whole team was actually ready to play. So focusing more on injury prevention and keeping their strength. For me and my workouts, it's just building strength and building muscle mass. So nothing too crazy, whereas their stuff gets a little hairy.
So for all the NBA teams out there, if you want a winner, give Karly a contact. She only trains winners though, so that's another thing. So if you're if you're like the Timberwolves, who I'm just embarrassed to watch all the time, it's just don't give her a call. But going back to sort of your online or your coaching with other clients, what would you say is the biggest excuse people give you when it comes to not wanting to have to adapt that more healthy and fit lifestyle?
It used to be time, but now time is actually really not an issue. We've got time. The one thing I think most people really give as an excuse is that food. They don't want to. They don't want to not be able to go out with their friends for happy hour, or they don't want to track food, or they don't want that accountability. And you can get around it a little bit to some degree, but most people really hate doing that. So
yeah, that's it. Like time was a huge one that we had, but then I always say the excuse is like, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, unless you're like we mentioned it before, unless you're like The Rock, because I have no idea how he's able to do all that stuff in 24 hours. He's got to have like 26 or 27 hours. I'm convinced of that. But otherwise, I mean, like I've had nurses on here that work 12-hour shifts and they're still able to, find the time. So it's all about that. But yeah, the food thing too, that was one thing for me too, where I'll admit I had so much free time to work out in college because my class schedule was perfect, where I worked out so much that like I was still on that burger and pizza kind of diet, and I still look good just because like if you're working out 3 hours a day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can kind of get away with a lot more. But so yeah, the nutrition was just a huge thing for me too. And also one of the things that I love to stress, because a lot of people that listen to this too are like up and coming, they haven't really got trainers yet, or they might be looking for it. One of the big scenarios that I always love to point out is that a lot of trainers or coaches always talk about that can be very, very detrimental is they give the clients the proper nutrition plan. The clients show up for all the workouts because they're still into, wanting to get in shape, but then they don't follow the nutrition plan and they don't see results. And then they might get mad at the trainer, or they might just say like, hey, I don't want to work with you anymore because it's not getting the results.
Right.
That's a huge thing that I kind of like to tell everyone out there. You have to follow the nutrition, because working out, like everyone says, is probably like 20% of it, and the nutrition is about 80% of it. What are some ways that you sort of like to give the clients in order to make sure that they're following their nutritional needs?
Like skills or habits?
Just like skills, yeah.
I really like when my clients use flexible dieting. If it fits your macros, I think it gives them a little leeway to actually do the things they want to do. But then I think the main thing that I appreciate about it is it teaches them the value of food. So I can have this, but then I can't have this later. Which one would I rather have? And it helps see really what's important to you. It helps you plan ahead. So I think that is probably the one thing that I recommend to anybody. A meal plan is great, but it's just very inflexible. And I think it kind of pushes you into this fear mode when it comes to food. So that's a big deal. Just the I guess the system that you use to actually figure out your nutrition. From there, small things like starting small and getting bigger. So start out with, 32 ounces of water a day if you're not drinking water, and then increase it as you go. Small steps instead of one huge, oh, you have to do all of this, otherwise it's not going to work. No, let's just build on top of what we can do.
And one of the big things that I love to bring up on here that is never really normally talked about, especially on Instagram or any other sources, is sleep. Sleep, the most important thing when it comes to recovery. I don't care what anyone says. We've had a sleep specialist all the way from the UK come on and talk about that. It's such a huge, huge thing. What is the proper amount of sleep that you like to get in yourself? I mean, no, I know being a mom, when you say proper amount of sleep, those two things don't really go hand in hand. But what is the right amount of sleep that you strive for? And then for clients, what is the right amount of sleep that you like to sort of tell them that they should get?
Well, I think everybody's very different, and we adapt very well to what we're able to do. So for me, anywhere from 5 hours to 8 hours is awesome. If I get 5 hours, I'm feeling pretty good. Clients, it depends on their life and what they're able to do. So my first recommendation is always get as much as you can. Try to set a normal, regular bedtime and set up a routine around it and go from there. I have a lot of people that they could go to bed an hour earlier, but then they'll lay there and they'll just, not be able to sleep. So the recommendation for me is, okay, go to bed 10 minutes earlier than when you feel like you could actually go to sleep, and build off there. It's all about building a foundation and building up from it.
Yeah, like with me, I work nights during the weekdays, so I get to bed usually around like 2 or 3 in the morning. And on days like today, when my neighbor decides to mow it at 9 in the morning, it's kind of hard to sleep in a little bit. So thanks, Gary, for that one. I hope you're watching this, so I can sort of call you out. But anyway, yeah, it's sleep is just so important, because it's one of those things, that and food, just not eating too, kind of, it's one of those things where if you have a good night of sleep, you can feel like you can take on the entire world, versus if you get 3 hours of sleep, you feel like if one person just flicks you, you're going to fall over and die, basically. It's such a huge difference. Yeah. And now we go to our audience favorite part, and my personal favorite part, the little questionnaire, where I'm going to ask Karly about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fit guests that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Ooh, R. Kelly, Ignition.
Ooh.
Oldie but goodie.
That is the first time that we've heard that song on here, and yeah, I
a little bit.
When I was growing up, yeah, that was a good song that I like to listen to. Me personally, I'm more of a sort of like, I gotta get my Metallica or my Rage Against the Machine in there just to motivate me. But here's the problem. I mean, I work out in my basement. We have a workout thing set up that I use 90% of the time, but the other times where I have to go to a gym, I gotta wait for the beat to drop. So sometimes, like, I love to use example. If I'm doing like lat pull downs, I might be like this for like 20 seconds, and then people are like, "What the hell is this guy doing? Like, why is he just standing there?" I'm waiting for the beat to drop, everyone. So don't think nothing's wrong. So, but yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my guilty songs is probably the Rocky IV soundtrack. I love those cheesy 80s songs. I mean, I could listen to those 24/7. Those are just the best for workout motivations. But now to our second question: out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, goodness. I have no idea. Gosh, I mean, The Rock would be awesome. That'd be insane. I really don't know.
Well, you're our 42nd health and fitness guest, and The Rock has been chosen 38 of the 42 times.
I'm sure.
So
I'm pretty good with the fact that you just mentioned The Rock.
Oh yeah. Well, then I think, because when I always like to give, when I give like the women working out, getting weight, I always use The Rock as an example. So I think I'm like subliminally like sort of putting that idea. So I might have to change that, where I might include like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that, and then we'll see what answers go. That'll be actually a good study. I can maybe write a thesis about it or something. But yeah, so yeah, The Rock is a huge one. I mean, for me, yeah, it would probably be like either that or like an Arnold, just because it's Arnold. That's a whole thing. But for now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, I don't know. My goodness, these are not easy questions. I mean, I don't know. I cannot think of one.
I'll ask her towards the end of the segment if she's thought of one, but for me, it's Kevin Hart. But here's the problem. The one problem for that would be we wouldn't be able to get a workout done because he would make me laugh the entire time. I mean, it would be the best ab workout I've ever had in my entire life, for sure. But, yeah, that's one thing where, I mean, I would definitely need to work some way in it. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Eggs.
Yep. That is our second most popular answer. Chicken is our most popular answer, but eggs, yeah, that's a huge one.
Eggs.
I mean, I have to have eggs in there. I'm probably going to have eggs right after we're done doing this anyway, right before I go to work. So, yeah, that's a go-to 100% of the time. And now, what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
I think I'm kind of a goofball sometimes. I take myself pretty seriously, but I can be a little bit goofy.
Oh, and that's always the best thing to have. You always got to have a sense of humor. I mean, that's one of my keys that I look to for success in people. You always got to be able to laugh at yourself, and you always got to be able to just, get through all those situations. Yeah. But now we go to our most important question that I will ever ask you. What was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Jane the Virgin.
Jane the Virgin. Wow.
Jane the Virgin. That is go-to cardio.
That's the first time I've heard that. Wow. Yeah, I've heard. I remember hearing stuff about it when it came out, but I never saw it or anything like that. So I might have to get a look. But okay, honestly, the last TV show that I've been watching was New Girl, and that wasn't that bad. I watched that. I know people are like, "Why would you watch it?" It wasn't too bad because my older brother started watching it, and yeah, I was very, very shocked and surprised. Yeah. But now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Honestly, probably Friends.
All right, I've mentioned this about 100 times, but I'm going to mention it again. The lady who played Ross's first wife, the lesbian Carol, she's coming on the podcast on November 12th. She started a charity, and I emailed her, and I said, I'd love to have you come on, talk about the charity and what you do. And then she's like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, you do realize, by the way, though, that half the questions are going to be Friends questions, right? And then she's like, oh, yeah, I get that all the time. So I've been coming
all the time, I'm sure.
I've been coming up with the 30 best Friends questions, and I'm just going to just lay on her when she gets on the podcast. Awesome. Yeah, and everyone's excited about that. I'll send you the link when that one gets done because I'm very excited. So everyone, November 12th, Jane Sibbett will be on the podcast. And for me, it's a tie between The Office and The Friends. I mean, it depends on the day of the week.
Office. I forgot about The Office.
Yeah, one day The Office will be my favorite show, and then the next day Friends will be my favorite. It just depends. I mean, I'm trying to get someone from The Office on too. I'm not going to name any names, but I always figure with a podcast this size, you gotta aim for the lesser characters, and then you work your way up.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, that's the way that you're successful. But what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
It has to either have chocolate or peanut butter in it.
Yeah, that's a good choice. For me, though, I got to go with the cookie dough blizzards from DQ.
Oh, yeah, that too.
The thing is, though, I had one 2 nights ago, and then working out yesterday. I hate even working out the next day because it just has filled me up so much. You just don't feel good. It's I get a stomach ache even from doing abs after that. So I definitely got to adjust that plan. But yeah, I always say I limit myself to once a month getting a chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard, and once every 2 weeks during the summer, just because it's summertime. But you got to be careful. I mean, always, never limit yourself, like you said. Never limit yourself. Just have it in proportions. Just don't, obviously don't eat McDonald's or Burger King every single day. I mean, maybe once every 3 weeks or once a month is fine for you. You're not gonna.
And when you do have it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Make sure that's what's going to satisfy you.
Don't be crying in the corner, being like, "Oh my God, I feel so guilty about this." Yeah. Obviously. That is one of the biggest things I can stress too. And what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Oh geez. Probably anything with Will Ferrell.
Yep.
Anchorman. Hangover. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he is. I mean, I remember seeing Talladega Nights in the theaters with my family, and that was the funniest movie experience I've ever had in my entire life. We saw it in a huge theater. So absolutely, but for me, my ultimate guilty pleasure movie is my ultimate date night movie as well, Princess Bride.
Oh, jeez, man!
I know every single lyric, or I know every single. I can quote that movie word for word. It's one of those movies where I remember I was working on my thesis paper and it was on. I stopped my thesis paper and I had to watch it. It's just one of those movies where I had to do it. I had to stop it, and it made my thesis paper maybe not as good as it would have been, but I graduated anyway, so that's all that matters. That's all that matters. But yeah, Princess Bride for me for sure. So now, what is one thing that you would change about the personal training or the healthy and fitness lifestyle if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
For myself, or just in general?
Or just in general, too, yeah.
If I had the power, everything is doable. We don't have to cut out anything to get to our goal. Like, stop with the detox teas and stop with the body wraps and the sweating and the sauna. Oh, stop, please. You don't have to do all that stuff. There's a better way.
Oh, absolutely. Just like there's always ways to do stuff, and all these stupid fads that come on. Like I remember as a kid, the Atkins diet was a huge one that everyone was just preaching about, and some people still say it today. And I was like, okay, that's so like 1998 or whatever. It's like,
Right.
what are you doing that for? So yeah, it's just because all these fads, every year there's a new fad, or every 2 years there's a new fad, and it's just stick. And I always tell people, I was like, there's a time proven way. It's exercising. For thousands of years, man has used exercise to stay in shape, and it's never failed. So it's just, you gotta.
The other thing I would say is don't believe everything you see. Instagram is wonderful for motivation and whatnot, but please don't see these girls on Instagram who they don't hardly lift, or they go just to booty workouts and they're using detoxes. Like, it doesn't work that way. And just because they have the body that looks this way, it doesn't mean that's what their body actually looks like. It doesn't mean that that's what they're actually doing. So don't believe everything you see.
I could nod my head for the entire rest of the podcast for that, because she is speaking the best truth that we will hear on here. I always like to say my biggest pet peeve is those stupid celebrities that will like post those Instagram things of them curling like 3 pounds and be like, oh my God, getting ready for my workout or getting ready for my new movie role. And then next thing you know, they've lost 25 pounds in the next month, and then they're like looking just absolutely incredible. And it's like, yeah, you're just making it seem so much easier than it really is for people. That's just my biggest overall, I mean, I get angry talking about this, shows like Biggest Loser. I hate shows like that so much. They get these people, they get them to work out. Obviously, if you're working out 12 or 13 hours a day, you're going to lose a ridiculous amount of weight. But then you always hear these stories of the people. They've lost 150 pounds, and then they go into the real world, and they gain 200 pounds back, so they weigh even more than they did when they started, because they're not taught the proper ways on how to keep the weight off, which is the most important part. If you're not taught, like, hey, maybe if you have 3 burgers after you've lost all this weight, you might not be able to keep the weight down. So it's teaching the proper nutrition.
Yeah, it's all about sustainability. If you can't sustain something, you're not going to stick with. It's just not going to work. So find something that you can stick with long term, and it's going to work long term.
And now going back to our questionnaire, we have a few questions remaining on the questionnaire part. What is one item that you would die to have if it went up for auction?
A 71 Bronco 2.
That is an awesome car. I was going to say, that's the first time we've had a car in here. I mean, some girl said Channing Tatum, and I said, that brings up a whole nother topic that we're not going to get into. That we're not using chattel slavery or anything like that. No, so no, but that car is a good one. For me, it would be like the Declaration of Independence or something like that. I mean, I'm a historian, so that would be really, really cool. So now going on to another history question, sort of. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Gosh. You're asking me these really tough questions, man.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
A historical figure. Maybe someone like, sounds weird, but like Paul Revere.
Oh, yeah.
Someone like that, yeah.
I wrote a term paper on him in college, yeah. And how he wasn't really the main contributor of the Midnight Ride. That's very, very misconstrued. Right. William Dawes did a lot more work than he did. That was my whole paper thesis, was William Dawes was the real hero that night, not Paul Revere. He just gets all the credit for some reason. But yeah, someone like that for sure. I mean, I did my DNA test, and I found that I'm a descendant of Ulysses S. Grant, the president and the commander during the Civil War. So I would probably go and talk to him. I mean, he was a raging alcoholic, so I mean, I wouldn't let him have the beer in the car. I would just say, we're going sober tonight, Ulysses. But then I also found out that I'm related to Richard Gere. If you don't notice the similar facial structures. Overall.
I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that all. But don't worry, we're coming from like the Mayflower, so he had plenty of time to just look a lot better. His family turned out a lot better. But yeah, and again, like everyone, I always say this: if you can go and get your DNA test or do any of that, go do it. I mean, it's so cool what they have today with technology. But now going back to our questionnaire, these 2 final questions I like to ask every guest, regardless. I mean, I have a lot of up and coming musicians. I have a lot of other people other than health and fitness, but I ask these 2 same questions. If someone were to walk up to you on the street and say, obviously, wow, you look amazing. I want to get into a more healthy and fit lifestyle. I want to adapt it. What would be the best piece of advice that you would give that person in order for them to be successful?
Start. Start and don't stop.
Yeah.
There's no point in starting over again. find something that works for you long term. Don't go all or none, and know that you're going to have some ups and downs, but start, because if you don't start, you won't get to where you want to go.
That was my biggest thing starting out too, because I was one of those people where I was like, if I'm going to start working out, it's got to be on a Monday, so I can say that I start out in the week. It's got to be either like the first of the month, so that I can say like, oh, I've been working out the whole month, or like the New Year's Day thing, or just a day where I felt like good about it. But it's just one of those things where it's like, just get in there. It doesn't matter when you say like, oh, I started working out October 7th, as opposed to, oh, I started working out October 1st. It doesn't matter at all. It's just the end result. It's just, and it's like I always tell people, the mind game is so much more worse than anything that you will have to do with physically in the gym.
Yeah.
The mind, I mean, your body can take a lot of stuff, and you're with mind power too. I mean, you see people do these impossible lifts that they wouldn't be able to do if their mind wasn't focused. The mind is just the trickiest thing when it comes to getting people through any situation. But just because I've always had these people on too where they talk about how they got into bodybuilding, they got into adapting a more healthy and fit lifestyle because they wanted to feel good about themselves. They didn't feel good about themselves, and they thought, if I looked really, really good, then I'd feel good about myself. And then they realized, I don't feel good about myself, even though I got into insane shape, because it's all mentally. You have to just accept yourself for your flaws, which is another huge thing that I cannot stress enough. And that's
self-love.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with that, because I mean, I've had people on here that are just the most fit, in shape people you will ever see, and then some of them are just like, yeah, I still struggle with body image issues, or I still struggle with mental issues, and then you just look at them and you're like, are you serious? But it's a huge, huge thing. So for our final question in the questionnaire part, if you were to go back and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Go for it. Don't hold back. If you fail, it's just a chance to do it better. Don't let fear run your life. That I think is go for it. Don't fear it.
I couldn't agree more. Mine personally was, you can't please everyone, because I was a huge people pleaser back then. You're not going to be able to please everyone. I mean, just with the people you love or the people that you care about, make sure that you just spend as much time with them. I mean, we only have a set amount of time on this planet, so make sure that you live a healthy and active lifestyle. And then for our final sort of portion of the podcast, if you were to sort of go back and talk to, I mean, obviously the younger self before you got into health and fitness, would there be anything that you would want to change about that? Or do you think that the journey that you came on made you the person that you are?
I mean, looking back, there are things I would change, but without all those things, I wouldn't be where I am. And I'm in a pretty good place right now. It took a lot of trauma to get the mind right, to get the body right. And the worst thing you can do is not learn from those traumas. If you take the victim mentality, no matter what you're talking about, if that's the mentality you take, you're going to be stuck. And so open up, go for it, but learn from it. Every mistake that happens. So,
like they always say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So it's just about learning to accept everything. And when it comes to especially the body image issue, I always find it fascinating for people like you who, weren't in the best of shape. Was that hard? Because for a good chunk of your life, you were sort of used to being in that caricature. When you adapted that healthy and fit lifestyle, was that hard to sort of see yourself in a different light and say like, oh, wow, I actually look different and I feel different? Was that a hard mental adjustment to sort of go from that, I'm not in the best shape to now being in really great shape? Was that a huge mental adjustment for you?
Well, you always see yourself as not in shape.
Yeah.
This is probably the best shape I've ever been in, and I still see all my flaws from when I was 9 years old. And so adjusting and giving yourself that self-love and saying, hey, no, I have changed. I have adapted. I do look good. I do look fine. That is really hard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just accepting yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're humans are unique in the fact that we will rip ourselves down for stuff that we did 25 years ago and just still think that still affects ourselves. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I mean, with my arm injury, I always, just have that replay all the time. But it's just, without that, I wouldn't be doing what I am today. I mean, I might be playing baseball somewhere, but I wouldn't be talking to all these great people that I have on the show. Yeah. It's just, you really got to think that positivity. And when it comes to also being, a coach, you're sort of a life coach to them, not just when it comes to healthy and fitness stuff. You're sort of also just giving them tips. What would you say is the biggest influence that you've had personally when it comes to giving advice to people? Like, who is your biggest influence?
The people I surround myself with. Nobody in particular. I have a few people right now in my life that are huge influencers on me. They encourage me to do better all the time, and that's what I try to give my clients. It's true. We're therapists. We're not just trainers and coaches. We're your sounding board, and the more people, the strong people that we can surround ourselves with, the better we are for our clients, and showing them the self-love and the no fear. Like, you have to surround yourself with the people that you want to be like.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So what is the future looking like for you? Is it basketball season right now for the team that you're strength and conditioning coaching for?
Basketball season will start in about December, run through May. So that'll be a big chunk of time. I take a little bit of time off from my personal training to do that. But the future right now, I mean, shooting into basketball season, we're getting online training, growing that a little bit. Looking to start a facility, hopefully here in Yakima, and just go from there.
I always got to ask, because the Pacific Northwest has always been a location that I've always wanted to visit with all the beautiful trees and everything. How great is it for just going for runs? Because that just seems like a really great area to go out and do physical activity. Do you find that area is just specifically great for that?
The Pacific Northwest is awesome. Most people think of Pacific Northwest as like Seattle, so it's rainy and green. I'm actually in the desert, so we have bare hills and sagebrush, but just as beautiful. We have a ton of orchards. So here in Yakima, it's gorgeous, especially this time of year with all the orchards changing color. Anything outdoors in the Pacific Northwest is worth doing. It's awesome.
I always think of like Twin Peaks when I think of the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
it's the beautiful, just. And my brother played a baseball season in there, and he just, said it's the most beautiful part. And I've always wanted to go and visit there. I visited every other region besides the Pacific Northwest, so that's the place that I definitely need to go to. So, oh yeah, absolutely. So, and where can people find you other than Instagram, which obviously we'll leave the link down below? What are some other ways that they could contact you if they want to get some personal training or some online training?
My website, www.cartolabs.com, Facebook, Cartolabs, or my name, Karly Almon. Anywhere that it's any social media platforms
Absolutely. And again, like I said, I'll leave all the links down below, and we can't Karly enough for coming on the show. I mean, just a great inspiration. Like I said, doesn't look a day over 25, so anyone out there, and then we've had people that are like 45 that don't also look a day over 20. So it's just it's really a good way to still maintain that youthful experience too, because I mean, especially being a mom too. How important is that also for you? Sort of our last question. How important is it for you also to be in shape, just to be able to keep up with your kids? Because kids in and of themselves, they're just full of energy. They're nonstop go, go, go. How important is the fitness aspect for you, just to be able to, sort of keep them under wraps a little bit?
Well, keeping them under wraps is important, but I think mainly working out and lifting heavy is kind of like my sanity spot. Like, it releases a lot of stress and tension. I'm a single mom, so there's other factors than just being mom. So I need that like outlet, that time away, that alone, that quiet focus, and it's extremely important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some days where if I don't get my workout in, I just feel like I'm going to go crazy. So it is just a huge, huge thing. And again, you guys, Karly, we'll leave the link down below for all of her stuff down below. We cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. And lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh, my goodness. Chris Green, great guy. Follow him on Instagram. He's got some great stuff. My family, my kids, obviously. SunKings basketball team. You guys are great. Looking forward to this year. Goodness, just everyone who follows me on Instagram, thank you so much. You guys you make it fun and give me a lot of support, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, everyone, if you're in the area, go check out the SunKings. Who knows? You might see her, and you might see some good basketball too. You never know. So absolutely. So again, you guys, Karly, thank you so much for coming on. All of the links down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone. All right. So I just pressed the stop record button. So that went really, really good. We only